Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Community FC, where I've got another episode of my club coming for you. I've got a very special guest today who's going to be talking about their club and why they support them. So let me introduce you to Mark.
Hi guys, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, thanks, mate. I'm all right. Cheers for having me on.
No, my absolute pleasure. And for audio listeners, when this goes up via That's Methods, he's wearing a lovely yellow shirt. So I don't know if that gives it away, but we are going to be talking this week about Arsenal or the Gunners. I know. I literally have had like the teams that I don't particularly like back to back. So it's interesting, but that's what it's about. He's even got a mug. Look at him. It's one of them. It's one of them. It's about, this channel is about community. It's about football in general. So we got to be inclusive of everyone. So I was like, what better person that I know to talk about Arsenal than Mark? So I guess we'll just jump straight in. So I've got a list of questions pulled up on the side. And I want to make it openly clear to everyone as well, for audio listeners as well. This is very much a forum for Mark to talk all things Arsenal. I will be kind of talking about stories and maybe asking some more questions or some of that stuff, but it's not for me to bring any bias in and anything like that. It's very much for him to tell you what it's like to be an Arsenal fan, for the goods, the bads, and I guess the generation that he grew up in is probably going to affect some of the answers that he gives. So I'll stop waffling and we'll move on. So I think the first one I like to start off with is kind of like, why do you support Arsenal? And then maybe like how long you've supported Arsenal is a good one to kick off on.
Yeah, okay, yeah, we can do that. Well, first of all, I want to say you sort of described it as it's my forum to talk about my relationship with Arsenal. That definitely is therapy over the last five, 6, 7 years. But yeah, anyway, so I guess we should probably take it back to the start to begin with. So I've supported Arsenal since I think I was 5. I am 29, nearly 30, so that makes that about 25 years. When I say that to myself, that's absolutely disgusting. But anyway, so how I got into football. So my dad wasn't really into football. And so by the time I hit 4 or 5, I didn't really have a football team. I started school, and I remember very clearly talking to a girl on the bus, and the girl was like a little bit older. She's like year 6, I think, and she was like, "Oh yeah, you should support Newcastle United." And I was like, "It's a bit weird." So for context, I'm from the home counties. I'm from Hampshire originally, and I was like, not sure how I would get into Newcastle United. I think she was just a massive fan of Alan Shearer, who obviously, when I started going to school, was one of the best players in the Premier League.
Understandable at the time, yeah.
Yeah, I think you can get away with that one. But yeah, so she kind of tried to lead me down that path. And then that was never really going to stick. My mum's family are from Blackburn, and my dad's family are from Greenwich, which, for people that don't know, Greenwich is very close to Woolwich, which is where Woolwich is where Arsenal was founded. It was called Woolwich Arsenal when it began as a club in the 1890s, I think it was, or 1880s, very, very long time ago. But anyway, so I diverted from there. So it was I was either going to be an Arsenal fan or a Blackburn fan. And I remember, I remember being in my back garden, and my cousin from London was in a JVC Arsenal shirt. And he sort of said to me, he was like, "Who do you support?" And I was like, "Oh yeah." I looked at his shirt, and I was like, "Oh, I support Arsenal." And he was like, "You're just saying, you're a classic young kid." He was like, "You're just saying that because you're just saying that to copy me." And I was like, "No, I'm not." And then so since that day, I've been an Arsenal fan, so I never wavered. So I mean, I had a choice between Blackburn or Arsenal. I suppose kind of Newcastle. That was never really on the cards. I think I made the right decision.
I mean, we'll get into that. Yes and no. I think for the longevity and all the stuff you've got from it, maybe for your your health and your frustrations, maybe not so much over the years, but definitely. Yeah. But that's really interesting. But again, as you said, like it's a really interesting one because you've technically got a family tie there in a sense as well, as long with that other story as well, which is quite interesting how you came about to support them. But I was going to say it's the JVC shirt as well was one of the classics. That's got to be a swaying factor in that as well.
Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, it's not. I wish it was here. I was like trying to dig it out, but unfortunately, it's at my mum's house, I think. But I still have my first JVC shirt.
Have you got a player on the back?
I do. I won't go into
it
yet.
Okay, yeah, I do.
Awesome. I do have a player on the back of it. But yeah, so. I would agree. I think I know you're kind of thinking, oh, there's been a bit of heartache in recent years, but
every team at some point, yeah.
Yeah, I was at the Blackburn game when they got relegated and a chicken got thrown on the pitch. It wasn't particularly pleasant to be a part of. So
not at all.
I still think, however low we've gone, I think they probably went lower. So
yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. I think the frustration with supporting a big club, which you probably have felt as well, is the pressure and expectation. Like you don't get to enjoy the wins as much because often the wins are like, well, you should win that anyway.
Absolutely. There's a difference, and from some of the My Club episodes you've had on here, and people that I watch the games with sometimes as well. When you support a lower club, you're kind of going into those games with an expectation of, oh yeah, we're gonna lose here. It's how much, or oh, if we get a draw, we'll be over the moon and stuff. When we're supporting teams that are very much the other end of the table, a lot of the time, it's you're kind of expected to win, and then if you don't, it's worse. And I also feel that, I mean, I've definitely felt it over the last few weeks, and it's something I've brought out a lot on the Roundup Review show, is that for the last few weeks of My Club, the amount of people that text you come out the woodwork that you haven't spoke to in so long, because they're like, well, your team's done so much damage to them in the past, and they're that team that doesn't matter how many times they lose, people will never get sick of it, and that's a hard thing to take as well sometimes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm quite glad we're recording this podcast now, because I think if we recorded it 2 months ago, I wouldn't have.
We've reversed situations. Absolutely.
Yeah.
One manager on the verge of being sacked, and one in a great streak of form. Anyway,
potentially.
Let's root that back. So actually, we'll go onto the back of the shirt, which might lead into it. So the next question I've got down here is kind of, do you have an all-time favorite player? And I'm happy for a couple of honourable mentions. But like, if you have someone that sticks out for you the most.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely going to be honourable mentions, but. There's only one man that could really top this list for me. It probably doesn't come as a huge surprise to yourself. That's going to be Dennis Bergkamp. I mean, I'm sure favourite for many Arsenal fans. He was just, I mean, in his heyday, he was just electric. And I know a lot of people might say that Henry was their favourite, and clearly. An honourable mention. Clearly, Henry was absolutely incredible, but I just think Dennis Bergkamp, his technical ability, he really, I'm going to get heat for saying this, I'd imagine, in the comments potentially, but I really do think he was the best number 10 in the Premier League, and I just think he defined that position in a way that. Since has been overtaken by the likes of Messi, etc. And then obviously at the club. And I think as we go through this, we're going to see a sort of running theme, I suspect, for me. But he was just so good. And not only as a finisher, but his ability to create for other people. He was our linchpin. And he just, had an unbelievable partnership with Ian Wright, had an unbelievable partnership with Thierry Henry. He had partnerships with Anelka, he had partnerships with Kanu, he had partnerships with, working with Perez and Lundberg and all that sort of thing. I mean, he was just next level. So I think it probably doesn't come as a surprise, but he is definitely my favourite player.
I don't think it's that surprising for you to pick any of those people that you kind of named on the list, especially with the Invincible squad and anyone since. I think that you can pick any of them, but Bergkamp is definitely, no matter what people are going to say, probably the top two that people are going to pick out with him and Henri. And just, you're right, his technical ability was magical to watch. Like some of the goals he scored, and some of the, yeah, as you said, some of the build up play and the setup play for other people is just phenomenal as well. So I don't think anyone's gonna flame you for that, because I think if you're picking that, you can argue for Henri, you can argue for lots of things. Again, it's personal to you, so it's no yes or no or wrong answers. But I think what a great shout it is. I'm really surprised, actually. I want to bring this up as well. As a more modern player, I knew he probably wouldn't make it onto your all time. But I knew that you used to have a very big soft spot for Santi Cazorla, so I didn't know whether that was going to appear later in the episode or not.
To be honest, I haven't actually. I wasn't really haven't spoke a lot about Santi. I did love Santi
There was a
Cazorla.
year's period where it was Santi was the man for you, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. And I think like this was kind of something I was going to go into, like my proper fandom, because my dad was never into it. I think a lot of my big fandom came when I was a bit older and could sort of enjoy that myself a bit more, and I sort of started getting more and more into it, and I think what's going to become clear as we go through and we revisit some of the big moments, for me they're often not the ones that general Arsenal fans would say. Like obviously I'm so proud of the Invincible season, but when the Invincible season happened I was 12 and didn't really know anything about football, so like I didn't really appreciate it as much as perhaps I appreciated some later moments in seasons and in games. And so yeah, I sort of vaguely remember some of these things, but I definitely have a bigger appreciation since I've got older. To go back to Dennis Bergkamp, like the goal against Newcastle in the 2000, it was in 2001, 2002. I don't know if you remember this one, Aidan, but it was an absolute cracker. He flicks, he's coming up to the defence. And if you haven't seen this, definitely get it up on YouTube after this. But he flicks it up with his right foot. He takes it past that last defender. I can't remember who the defender was, but he takes it right over the defender, loops it over. The ball starts coming back down. He's gone round the defender. He then takes it back on his right foot again, controls it, one touch controls it, and then boots it straight into the bottom right corner. And there's often a lot of debate about, did he mean it, did he not? Because people kind of think the flick was accidental. But I think if you watch all of Dennis Bergkamp's stuff, like he absolutely did mean it. And yeah, he was just incredible.
I can envision the goal that you're thinking about right now, and I know the debate you are, but I think for me it's in the movement of him. Like he wouldn't try to go round him as he did if he didn't mean it. If you're not thinking those players that are so technically gifted, they're almost thinking subconsciously most of the time, but they're thinking of the next step, like Messi and players like that. So they're already thinking, if this flick works, where am I positioning myself to get round and where am I going? So yeah, I'm definitely in the he meant that category. Maybe we'll touch on that a bit later and go on to that. So speaking of like favorite players, I like to ask this as well. Do you have a favorite player of this current season, this current Arsenal squad?
This current Arsenal squad, I absolutely do. It's probably not going to come as a huge surprise. It is the new number 10 for Arsenal. So it's the main man at the moment, Emile Smith-Rowe. I mean, what can you say about the Croydon De Bruyne? He's I don't know, like we'll go into this probably in more detail, but like watching this Arsenal squad has been so frustrating over the last 5, 6, 7 years, as I've kind of already said. And I think part of it's been like, it just didn't feel like a team that you believed in or cared about. And this new crop of like, they call them, for those that don't know, they call them the Hale End boys. So like Arsenal's training academy is in Hale End in London. And so anyone that graduates from there is a Hale End boy. So like you've got your trio this season, probably more duo, but a little bit trio of Smith Rowe, Saka, Bukayo Saka, and Ainsley Maitland-Niles all came out of the Arsenal academy, and I just think supporting those boys, it just makes watching football so much more enjoyable. Like Smith Rowe came out and said, if Arsenal want me here for the rest of my career, then I'm going to stay here forever. And you just love to hear that.
So refreshing.
Yeah, because we had a few people, including absolute club legend, and I'm not taking anything away from him, Thierry Henry, Cesc Fabregas, the likes of them who we loved, and they went for pastures new, and you understand that, and you move on and stuff. With most of them, there's probably one that I wouldn't move on from, but which we may well get into. But yeah, like you get it, and you watch, like when we for anyone that were like the Arsenal 3, the Arsenal 3 Tottenham 1 game earlier on in the season, when Smith Rowe and Saka are on the team sheet, and you watch those boys and they're knee sliding half the pitch of the Emirates because they love it and they know how much it means to the fans to beat Tottenham. And they're, Emile Smith Rowe's 21, like it's the best. He came out at the time and said it's the best day of his life. And it's so nice to watch guys like that, because you think, yeah, that is actually the best day of your life. And it's been a real breath of fresh air, to watch. People might not know this, but so obviously with the gap that Ozil left last year, he basically this summer demanded the number 10 shirt. He basically went to Arteta and said, I want the number 10 shirt, I'm good enough for it. And as we've sort of already alluded to, Arsenal, the number 10 shirt is like it's sacred, as it is at most clubs. But the last person to wear it was Ozil. You've got like Jack Wilshere, like down the years, Cazorla, down the years, you've had all of these amazing Arsenal players wear that shirt. And then, like it's a legacy and it's pressure if you take it. And he asked for that shirt, and then he's come into this season and he's banged in 5 goals and 2 assists already. It's more than he's ever done in any other season with us. And it just looks bright. And he's just good. And this week he's had a call up for England, and that's like absolutely amazing. So I think that's been a bit of a bone of contention for Arsenal fans. Like we haven't had any players in the England setup for so long, and now we have 2 of the best. And then a man that is going to be getting a mention shortly, that's sort of coming into the wings and getting ready for his inevitable cap later on in the season. So it's just refreshing to watch, after watching a lot of people come in and out of the club that frankly just don't care about it and are just coming in for a paycheck, I guess. And yeah, I imagine Man United fans can probably relate to that, whether they like it or not. I don't know. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think that what you speak about, you mentioned a few very important points. One of the things, being a United fan, that I pride myself on a lot, and I spoke about in the Southampton episode, is when they're your youngsters, it makes such a difference. Like I grew up watching all these players come through our legendary academy, and from class of 92 onwards, and but like it has been that thing. Like I watched Jesse Lingard come up through the ranks. I watched Marcus Rashford come up through the ranks. I have, for how many years, I don't know, been ripping my friends' ear off, telling them for 5 years plus that there's this kid called Mason Greenwood who doesn't have a weak foot, that's going to take over the world one day. And everyone's like, yeah. And when you get to see them finally get there, and then other people come to you and be like, oh, that kid's pretty good, isn't he? You're like, yeah, he's going to be a world beater, mate. And I think Smith Rowe and Saka and people like that have been a breath of fresh air and some young youth talent for Arsenal to really get behind. But it's they care because they've grown up. caring so much about every fixture. They know what it means to be a gunner. What, you know, that's the point. They know the legacy, they know the heritage, and they play for the shirt. And Smith Rowe's form has been unreal. He's in such a purple patch currently, and you don't see any time stopping soon. Like, most people didn't think they'd be putting him in their fantasy team, but lots of people are looking this week going, after the break, am I? Like, him and Conor Gallagher, two young midfielders, are you putting them in potentially? But I think as well, like, yeah, it's the unity that the team seems to be a lot more this season anyway. Like, you've had a few pieces of the puzzle missing. You know, we'll get crazy into detail and stuff, but I think since you've had a few other signings, when you bought Ben White, it wasn't, for me, I wasn't going, oh, that's going to win you the league. But then you've brought in, you know, your right back, who seems to really be taken to the Premier League straight away and solidifying stuff. You've got the kids stepping up a lot, and maybe filling the gaps where maybe Lacazette or Aubameyang aren't turning up some days as much as you want them to, or filling that hole from where Ozil was and stuff. So you're really getting that, the star shining out. And absolutely, that's a high for an Arsenal fan to enjoy at the moment. And I'm sure you will keep on, especially considering the start of the season. It's almost ramped it up to even more kind of heights of being happy. So, but I think that's a really good answer. I think I love to see breakthrough players coming through no matter what team they play for. It's exciting. You know, he's English as well. So if you're an England fan, which I am as well, then it's exciting to see what they're going to do. And I really liked, just touching on that quickly, his England call up. One thing I like about when players are young, but they give back to, you know, their community or something. I'm not trying to talk to many other players apart from Arsenal players, but I would say, you know, like Marcus Rashford, for example, obviously this week getting a MBE. But the same with Smith Rowe. The story was he ran downstairs and told his mum because he was so excited, and it's a heartwarming story that he cares, and but also the fact he's so relatable because he's just a person that's now gassed because he's got a call up for the England squad for the first time, and he utterly deserves it.
100%, yeah. And you know, like, I'm not talking about him this season because I don't think he's had a particularly good start to the season. But Bukayo Saka, like, I'm sure, like many people, I mean, it was just so good to see him over the Euros this year. He's so proud, and he's just such an enigmatic young talent. He's so dangerous, and I honestly think he's. The reason he's probably not had that good a season as of yet is because he's probably pretty knackered he carried us last year when we were pretty mediocre. Absolutely. And he put in a big shift for England this year. And I think he was often one of the best players on the pitch. I loved the shot of him diving into the England pool on the unicorn float. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I did.
But it's just so wholesome. And they're just players you can really get behind, and young guys that are doing, you know, I think back in the day, that sounds really, I was nearly about to say back in my day, which is even worse, so I'm just going to move on. But back in like 2010, 2000, those sort of World Cups where we had arguably the best England squad that we've ever had, those guys I don't think they were likable. Like, they weren't relatable, and they by their own admission, they've come out in the media and said, like, they were partying, they were doing all this stuff. You don't get, I'm sure it happens, but you just don't get that as much with the likes of this England squad, and that's what's quite exciting. And yeah, I mean, I alluded to another player. I guess I should move on. While we're talking England, I should talk about this guy, because I don't know if you know who I'm going to say, but Aaron Ramsdale. Mm-hmm. I mean, what a guy. Like, I mean, he has absolutely smashed it.
The double saved 2 weeks ago was unbelievable. Like, and actually, do you know what? I've been watching a lot of I'm sure lots of the viewers of this show do as well. I watch a lot of the Fozcast and Ben Foster's channel, whether it's his podcast or his vlog channel, and he's been saying kind of since day one, since he got the move, he's like, Aaron Ramsdale, he's the real deal. He's a real keeper, and he's going to be England's number one at some point. And you know, I think there's totally there. I think that's totally right. He's going to be. I think that because he's done it on form, and he seems to just be getting better and better. And form is so important because a while ago, and this is not me by any chance having my club bias. I generally am taking my bias out of this when I'm going to say this. I thought on paper, now obviously he had injuries and then he had COVID, but on paper, to me, if you'd said last season when he was in goal for us a lot, you were like, who's going to be the England keeper? I'd have gone Dean Henderson, because I was like, he's got the ability, he's got the talent. But you see that sometimes change, and we'll get back to Arsenal soon. So I'm just going to make this point of you're going Nick Pope, great keeper as well, and he's in the England setup as well. But Jordan Pickford is a totally different Jordan Pickford when he plays for Everton. He makes so many mistakes. I personally don't rate him that much when he plays for Everton. He does, even like this weekend, he threw the ball out and just like missed through it. And it's just like, he doesn't have that same presence. When he puts an England shirt on, totally different player, and it's on form, and he, he's very commanding and he does outrageous penalty saves and that. But I think Ramsdale, if he's building up that Arsenal form, totally could be, having that shot. And I think when he gets the shot, he's going to take it and do something with it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Look, I think he's fantastic. He's getting a lot of comparisons positively to David Seaman, who, when David Seaman came to Arsenal, I think I can't remember where he came from. I feel like he came from the likes of a Sheffield United. It wasn't Sheffield United. Sheffield United fans, I apologise. But yeah, he's sort of an English keeper, young. They didn't really, I don't think they were really respected as signings when they came in. And I think, people thought, we've got Bernd Leno, we don't need Aaron Ramsdale.
Well, I was going to say on that, sorry, quickly, is that that was the thing when everyone heard that Leno for 2 years or so wasn't necessarily that happy and was looking to get out. But I don't think anyone was thinking that Ramsdale was going to push him out that quickly and then just completely solidified his spot as number one. Like, what was Leno, 30, 35 mil? Something like that.
Yeah, Leno was, I think he was cheaper than that, but he was, I think he was 25 or something. But regardless of the price, he's an established number one.
Yeah,
been number one at Arsenal for a couple of years. I certainly didn't see it coming. I now see why. Like, if you look at the way, like, I'll give you an example. The new right back, Takahiro Tomiyasu, he's also been absolutely superb. But against Tottenham, which was one of the first big games where Aaron Ramsdale performed really well, there was a moment where they did a clearance and the two of them like sort of chest bumped and high-fived for a clearance. And it was like, you can see that Aaron Ramsdale's a leader for the team, and you can see he gets involved, and he really he likes whipping. If you watch him in a game, he whips up the fans, he's clapping, he's like getting them involved. There was a moment against Leicester where
I know what you're gonna say.
He's giving the Leicester fans a bit of grief. I won't go too much into it on this one, but I just think
he was joining in, wasn't he? Having fun with them.
Yeah,
it was good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not bad grief. It was good grief, and I guess So like in all of these signings, like this team, it has just become so much more likable again. And you want to be behind them because they care about the badge and they care about what they're doing. And we've been signing veterans like the likes of Willian, David Luiz, etc. Who, some of them were awful, not naming any names. Some of them were fine, like David Luiz, but they make massive, huge howlers in big games. I don't really want to get too into the Xhaka thing because he's still there, but there's a clear shift by the hierarchy, and no, we didn't sign anyone that was over 23. And Ben White's 24 now. He's the oldest signing we made over summer. We made 5 signings, and I guess the hope is that this team grows together, but you want to be behind them because there's something new, they all care.
Yeah, so going off that, sorry, we'll move away from players, and it's not one of the questions I normally ask, but I feel it's prevalent to ask it in this scenario. So you've seen such a shift, and as you said, the philosophy and stuff's there. So let's quickly just touch on, probably not so quickly, but let's talk about Arteta. I know he had a really dodgy start to the season. Obviously he came with all this pedigree for being, Guardiola's sidekick at the time. Do you, as an Arsenal fan, I'm sure the answer is going to be obvious at this point, but are you very much an Arteta in at the moment? And also on that, do you see that, like some people are saying, do you see his philosophy, and do you see the squad that he's building now? Is that what you're expecting to kind of carry on, and is that the Arteta way?
So I don't. It's a complicated relationship. Where my Facebook status of my relationship with Mikel Arteta would definitely be it's complicated. When we appointed him, he would have been my first choice. I thought it was a really good appointment. He came with a really high pedigree, as you say. He was training under Guardiola. All the noises were really, really good. He was meant to be amazing. And then he came in. He had a bit of a rocky start, but there was loads of, he came in near COVID and all that sort of thing. And I guess I'll get into a little bit of that probably a bit later. But he came in a really difficult period, and we just needed someone that communicated well, that cared about the club, and that could, sort of could be seen as something new. And he was that. He rightly has come in for a hell of a lot of criticism last season because we were very mediocre. And even, obviously the start of this season when it was the knives were being sharpened and the axes being ground, and he just looked like a guy without a plan. He was playing veterans that didn't care about he oversaw all of that as well. So you can't just say he's had a good 2 months,
100%,
which he has had a good 2 months, and say, well, it's all gone now. And in all fairness to Mikel Arteta, I don't think he expects fans to say that. I think he accepts the criticism is completely fair, and that's the start of it. Go on, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think he's realistic along with the fans. You can't go from, arguably, I don't think you'll disagree with this, arguably fan favourite and bookies favourite to be fired first to winning manager of the month. Like, that's a big jump. So I think he'd take the criticism from both, but he'd be more wanting people to acknowledge the form the team's on. And again, you can judge him in a few weeks. Wait till you have another rocky spell. All teams do. It's going to come at some point. Wait till you have a loss or two and see how the team react then, or wait until after Christmas and see if that's still the same vibe. But yeah, I completely agree. Like, he'd be expecting that.
100%. And look, there's a lot about Arsenal's boardroom turnover and all that sort of thing. And I'm not entirely convinced this strategy comes entirely from him, just because if you look at, I just don't think he had any other option. Like, we signed all of these players, he had to play them because he was about to get sacked if he didn't play them all anyway. You have Edu, who's our technical director behind the scenes. He's, clearly he's been part of this strategy going in. Who's more responsible for it? I don't really know. I'm not privileged to the inner workings, but the jury's still out on Arteta, and I think let's not judge him over 2 good months. Let's judge him over where we are at the end of the season. He has to be held accountable for the development of the Hale boys. It was really good on Sunday when we played Watford. Ainsley Maitland-Niles, another Hale boy, got man of the match.
Saka scored, but it was offside. Yeah,
Saka scored, but it was off, which was a weird offside, by the way. I took me a while to compute what had happened there, but anyway, So that's a match where last year he's playing someone like Mohamed El Neni, who is bang average central midfielder. He's starting El Neni. We're conceding a stupid goal. It's 1-1. And we come out of that with a draw. Whereas, he starts Ainsley Maitland-Niles. Midfield looks a bit young, looks a bit, does probably look a bit raw, but looks exciting. And so, there's less of a nerve, and it's good to see the atmosphere at the Emirates kind of seems to be coming back, which is really nice. So there's a definite. I think what's nice is that Arsenal got absolutely ridiculed over the summer for the transfer policy. Kind of looked random. People didn't really understand it. got Gary Neville going on Sky Sports going, don't get it, bit, all seems to be coming out of the blue. But like, you look at all of these players, like every single one of those signings, bar probably Martin Odegaard, and I do think he'll have a part to play at some point this season, have been absolutely smashing it. So yeah,
I think that's a really sensible opinion, and I know that you can maybe talk about the stigma later on. I'm sure you will, but there's a lot of, as you'd expect, noise around Arsenal fans and the way they behave because of a certain TV channel and all sorts of stuff. But I think that's a really realistic and nice thing. It's judge him. Let's see later down the line, things have been clicking. He had injuries and stuff. And I think that as well. I think most of your signings will prove to be great. I think, Tomiyasu has been the one that stood out to me loads. I think he's been amazing. And Ramsdale, I will call it how I see it. I still don't think Ben White is up to the job, but we'll see if he builds into that. There's a chance he will. Lots of people think he's a really expensive glorified Championship defender, but again, he's got a chance now to prove either way, and he's got the team to build it, and he's building that relationship with the younger squad as well. So we'll probably I'll move on to the next questions before we could talk about this all day, because I think your team's such an interesting just an interesting whirlpool of emotions and form and everything at the moment. You just don't know what it's going to happen. So but we went on to favorite player this season, which was Smith Rowe. Do you have, or do a couple more favorites, and then we'll get into some more other stuff? Do you have a favorite goal of all time, or is it the Bergkamp one that we've already discussed?
No, this is not the favourite. That's not the favourite goal. I was watching loads of goals.
If you honourable mentions, obviously, there's some. It's so difficult to be 25 years of watching just one, but yeah.
I know. Well, I don't. Yeah, there is kind of just one that's always stood above the other ones. So I actually weirdly there are a couple of good Giroud scorpion kick. If you don't hate in the Adebayor bicycle, there's a few other ones like that. When we signed Eduardo, I got a bit carried away and got an Eduardo shirt, which was a real shame because I think he would have been incredible if he hadn't had the leg break. But there's Eduardo has a great sort of, it's not overhead, but it's kind of like a over shoulder into the goal. That's a really good one. I can't remember who scored that against. But there's one Arsenal goal that's head and shoulders above for me, and that's the Wilshere Norwich tiki-taka.
The build-up play, that goal of the season one. I can literally picture it now. A beautiful goal.
It was incredible. So it's for, if anyone's not seen this,
please go watch it.
What are you doing? Please go and watch it after this. But it's Jack Wilshere versus Norwich. It's peak post Invincibles, Wenger ball. It's tiki-taka, and it's Wilshere starts the move. Wilshere flicks it over a defender, very Bergkamp-esque actually. Cazorla passes it through to Giroud. Giroud knocks it onto Wilshere. It's all one touch. It's ping, 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 and then it knocks it through to Wilshere, who's made the run through, and Wilshere smashes it in for a goal. And it's absolutely my favourite Arsenal goal. I always think of it when anyone asks me anything like that.
That's a really nice
move,
and it's actually a really nice goal to mention, because I think a lot of the time when I've had people on here where you speak about a fan's favorite goal from an era or something, it's normally a single player that's a standout performance, or it's a memorable moment, like it won a cup final or something as well. The reason I love you saying that is because it's the definition of team goal. Every single person played their part in that goal. It was peak Wenger ball, and it was peak Arsenal, because it was that whole thing of you'd rather walk it into the net than just tap it in, because that's the way you played. But it's just, it was quite early on in the season. Quite rightly, everyone was like, that's goal of the season, because that is the way football should be played. It was just pass, move, and it's just you literally just glided past the defense, and just it was beautiful. That is I'm not an Arsenal fan, as people know. That is an outrageously good goal, and I was like, yeah, fair play. That's unbelievable. So that's it's a really good pick, and I think most people listening to this will be like, I can literally envision that goal in my head, because it's a standout one.
Definitely.
So we'll go from favorite goal. This is maybe a harder one, and again, by all means, absolutely have a couple. I like to ask this one because, again, like the last question, it might be for other people, it might be more cup finals and stuff. For lower teams, it might be all sorts of stuff. But I like to ask, do you have like a favorite memory or a couple of favorite memories of your club for any reason?
Yeah, so this was way harder than favorite goal, to be honest, because and some of these are probably, you know, within goals are within these. But there's so like, like obviously as any Arsenal fan would, and I've got to mention this, the Invincible season was amazing. But I was quite young at that time, and so like I think a lot of that goes over your head a little bit. So some of these are a little bit more recent, and people might be like, "Oh, it's massively disrespectful." Not disrespectful. Totally respect what we did then. I mean, I remember going into school in like the double season in 97, 98 and that sort of thing. Like when, I remember all of that kind of thing with Overmars and Petit and all of that sort of thing. But a lot of these are probably more recent. But yeah, so the first one that I'm thinking of was the Chelsea 5-3 in 2011. We went 2-1 down to Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. It was just after we'd had the absolute. Can I swear on here? I don't know if I'm
absolutely.
allowed to.
Say what you want.
An absolute shit show of a transfer window where we basically got the trolley out on transfer deadline day and signed 5 players. It was not long after the 8-2 against Man United. That's definitely not one of my favourite memories of the club.
Could be on mine. Could be on mine.
It could well be on yours. Definitely not on mine. But it was just so we went 2-1 down at the Stamford Bridge. It was like Lampard, Terry, all the classics. We looked in big trouble. And then we went on to win the game 5-3, and it was such a good game. I think part of the reason I remember this is I remember being in a pub with one of my housemates at the time, and he and I were sort of jumping around the pub and hugging this random guy in an Aaron Ramsey shirt. I remember it so clearly. It was so weird. But he must not be named. RVP scored a hat trick, and Theo Walcott got on the score sheet, and I like Theo Walcott was probably my favourite player of that time. So that was good. I guess other moments, Arshavin versus Liverpool. That's a bit of a throwback one. But we just signed Arshavin. He came in, and that game was hard to watch. Yeah, it was hard to watch because he took over and scored 4 goals. It was a bit painful because Liverpool came back. It was 4-4, obviously, but I've just never seen a player dominate a game like that. Really, like you see it, but like the way he just went, nah, I'm not having that every time, and it was really impressive. But yeah, that was good. Plenty of like the Fabregas and the Walcott eras and stuff like that. So that they were good. I felt like I just wanted to give them a mention. Don't really have like any specifics for them. Although I do remember when we were beating Tottenham 2-0. Walcott got carted off injured, and he's throwing up the 2-0s on the stretcher and
classic.
Getting pennies chucked at him by Tottenham fans. But anyway, we'll leave that. Like the Man United Arsenal rivalries, like they were always. I'm not going to say they were always good because they definitely were mostly bad for us.
Yeah,
but they were always
they're
really
always highly
spicy.
anticipated and exactly, really like fierce fought games, weren't they?
Yeah, 100%. And so that was always good, and so many good moments, and like. This didn't really go. I didn't really feel like this was a favourite club goal, but this was a really nice moment when Henry returned to the club and scored against Leeds. That in the FA Cup, that was really special. probably my most emotional moment, I would say. Whether I don't know whether I'd say it's a favourite memory, but it summed up an era quite nicely. Was towards the end of the sort of Wenger era, I was very much Wenger out, and I think there's a few people now that say maybe we didn't know how good we had it.
Yep.
I would say to those people, I don't think you remember the last 3 or 4 years of that reign, because we definitely didn't have it that good. And I think if we had that now, no disrespect to Arsene, but if we had that now, we would be really up shit creek without a paddle. Yeah, it was not good watching, and it was like every game against the top 6, you were going in expecting to lose, and it was like the rare ones that you won were so special because they were so rarely won, and that was just not where Arsenal should have been. But one of my favourite moments as an Arsenal fan was watching the final Arsene Wenger game. It was sort of badged as Merci Arsene, and it was Arsenal Burnley, and we beat them 5-0. And I was watching in a pub in Finsbury Park at the time. For those that don't know, Finsbury Park is 15-20 minutes away from Highbury from like walking distance, and it was so electric in the pub and in the stadium, and it was really emotional. It just brought back all of those really nice moments, and you see all the legends came back and supported him on the pitch, and it was just a really nice moment, because it just makes you think back to all of the good times that he gave us, not really the bad times. And we smashed Burnley, which helped with that. It's pretty similar to the last game of Sir Alex Ferguson, I'd imagine. But yeah, so I think if I was to say any moment, it's probably the Merci Arsene, but that's only because it made me think of all the good moments that he gave us.
Yeah, make you really introspective and think about all those great memories and stuff. And also it's something that only really us can talk about in terms of fan groups, because no one else has had that, when you're growing up and you're like, I've never known anyone else in that dugout. I've never known anyone else. Do you know what I mean? Like or have lots of memories of that. And for lots of people, managers are very much, now one season gone, next, or a couple of seasons, something. And they play such a big part of your childhood or your era growing up and stuff, that they do mean a lot. So it might not be players, but yeah, definitely managers for Arsenal, Manchester United have had a huge impact on the clubs and the fans. So that's a really nice one as well. So we'll go from, I guess, speaking of like favorites and stuff, we'll get a bit more into it. So this one I always like to bring up as well. So obviously know that you're living in London itself now. So the one that I've got is kind of, do you go, it's like a two-parter, do you go to many games? And it's like, when did you last go, is I guess my last question to talk about.
Yeah. So I do go to games. As I sort of mentioned when I was saying about getting into it, my dad was never into football, nor was my mum. And so I never really had that much access when I was growing up. I think the first game I ever went to was an Arsenal Blackburn Rovers. I was trying to look this up. I think it was in 1999. I think it was a 1-0 where Dennis Bergkamp scored, which seems quite appropriate for how this podcast started. But I do, since I moved to London in 2018, and I do regularly go to games since I've moved to London, which admittedly was not long ago. But I've always, I've gone over the years and stuff like that. I lived in Finsbury Park, so that also helped with that. So I went quite frequently in that year. There have been some good and bad moments. I think when you go less, you tend to go to games where you win.
I'd agree.
Which is nice. So I enjoyed that. In the year I lived in Finsbury Park, where I went very frequently, I went to a couple where we lost that were quite horrible. So I went to one where we lost 2-0. I think it was 2-0 in the Carabao Cup to Man United. That was pretty bleak. And then I remember I was at the game where Emery blew the top four when it was Crystal Palace. Probably more familiar to Arsenal fans, but we were pretty much in the driving seat for top four.
Yeah.
And then we lost that game. And then we went on an abysmal run. I should have checked it, but we lost something like, we lost 3, drew 1, and 1-1 or something towards the end of the season. It was awful, and the atmosphere in that game was horrible. Mustafi put one in our net, but even before that, like the atmosphere had proper soured, and everyone was nervous from the first whistle, really. And so, yeah, there's been various moments where you go and when you go and win, it's great, but when you go and you're in an environment like that, it's pretty horrible, to be honest. It makes you question why you're spending the money on going.
Absolutely, and it's expensive money to go, and when you're seeing your team not turn up or just not even care, or you're seeing that atmosphere itself, like when you're with that many people in a stadium, it's infectious no matter what the atmosphere is. If you're nervous, everybody feels nervous. If you're, angry and pissed off or in a sour mood, you can hear it and sense it all around you. And also, like, I find that as well, is sometimes it's easier to shrug stuff off. I mean, it does work vice versa, but sometimes it's easier to shrug off losses when you're at home and you kind of get on with your day. If you've been there, it's ruined your day. Like, you can't get out of that mood, and it really does just seep into you. But yeah, no, that's really interesting. And as I said, like, it's lots of people do tend to go when they're older and stuff, and obviously location definitely helps for certain people. Like for me, it's a lot harder to get to where my club is than quite a lot of other people. So depending on where I live, so that's a good one.
But my actual,
go on.
My actual last game that I went to was it was Arsenal Victoria. It was in the 2019-2020 season. We went 2-1 down to Victoria, who are a Portuguese team in the Europa League. It was pretty terrible. It was at the point where it was a month before Emery got sacked.
Mm-hmm.
So the atmosphere in the ground was just getting worse and worse, basically. Yeah. But we did come back to win that game. So I did finish with pre-pandemic on a win. We won that 3-2. Nicola Pepe had 2 blinding free kicks that saved us, but it was at the point where the only goals we could score were free kicks, which until a couple of months ago has felt like probably the whole of last season. But anyway, so Emery got sacked after that game a month later, so It was one of them. But yeah, my first game going back, I'm booked in, so I'm going to see Arsenal Southampton. You've had a guest on, I believe.
I have, yeah.
Rich Marks, who's a Southampton fan. So I'm going back to see Arsenal Southampton. So hopefully, Rich, you'll give us another 3 points there.
I'm sure you'll hear all about it on Roundup Review. He's very vocal on social at times as well. Cool, yeah, that's really good, and it's always nice to have that next one pen in the calendar, something to look forward to, which I'm still needing to do for my next game at the moment. So the next one, I'll say all the questions at once as kind of 3, but I then will kind of answer with 1, and then we'll leave the 2 at the end, but just so you can think about it in your head. So in kind of order, I like to ask a really hypothetical one and seeing how realistic people are, which I like to see is where do you see the club in 5 to 10 years time? I know that for an Arsenal fan, that's literally like predicting the lottery numbers tomorrow, because you're so up and down. I don't think you'll mind me saying that, because that's a realistic view on it. And then we'll kind of finish towards the end of like a double parter question, I guess, but just to get you thinking about them now, which is there anything that you don't like about your club? And we've said a lot of positives. I want positives and negatives. Like, absolutely, you can talk about what you like and what you don't like. But I know that potentially touched on them before, like owners or backroom or stuff like that. And then maybe even like I don't know how you feel about Arsenal fan TV and the reception that you get from those kind of stigmas and stuff as well. And then kind of as well at the end, you can kind of sum up what it's like to be an Arsenal fan, but also maybe anything you want to say to fellow Arsenal fans. But we'll start with where do you see the Gunners in 5 or even 10 years?
Yeah, okay. I'll keep this one fairly short because I don't really know. What I would love is that I'd like to see us challenge for major honours again, obviously. The new strategy seems a good way to do that, especially when we don't have the kind of money that certain clubs have. And on that point, investment is going to prove a real problem, I suspect, in the Premier League in the next 5-10 years. You've got the likes of Newcastle now with the takeover and that sort of thing. There have been lower profile takeovers, but takeovers by billionaire owners nonetheless. There are people like West Ham have people swirling around and stuff like that. Most of these clubs are going to have billionaire owners in the next 5-10 years, in my view. Yeah. So we have to develop a strategy to work smarter than the market, which is not easy. So that is why I think if there's any way Arsenal are going to do it, and Arsenal's owners, for the record, and we'll probably get into this more on the next one, but Arsenal's owners have the money to be able to invest in that sort of thing. The one good thing that I see for Arsenal, and not the one good thing, but a positive thing that I see for Arsenal, is the Kroenke's American sports franchises are both or all performing extremely well at the moment. And that's because they have a policy of putting the right people in the right places and then having teams that are loaded with young talent that have a sprinkling of star talent around them. And that helps them build winners. The Los Angeles Rams are one of the best teams in the NFL this year and Super Bowl contenders. The Denver Nuggets in the NBA are one of the best teams in the NBA. They had Nikola Jokic last year, who was a league MVP. I would quite like Arsenal to follow suit on that, but let's see what happens. That might be thinking ahead of the game. But yeah, on that basis, and those teams were in the doldrums 5-10 years ago. So let's hope that we can be on the rise in 5-10 years. I don't know.
I mean, that's a really interesting way to look at it. Sorry, did I cut you off? Are you going to say more on that?
No.
I was just going to say as well that I mean, we don't like to compare our clubs for certain reasons, but I actually think Arsenal and United are two very intertwined teams in so many different ways. Obviously, we've had a fierce rivalry over the years, and that kind of peaked maybe more than lots of other clubs, but just also off the pitch as well. I think we'll talk on the pitch as well, but like we had obviously got the Wenger and Ferguson kind of links as well, and then particularly with our new managers this season, we've kind of mirrored and had ex-players and stuff take over for good and bad, and both have had both, but also off the pitch as well. Like you had fans that want your owners out. You've had people that want to invest in your club and they're not being allowed to invest in your club, so more frustration for the fans. You've also had the American sports franchises you bring up as well, like I brought up on a previous episode. The Glazers own the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the NFL team as well, and they had obviously huge success winning the Super Bowl last year. And you hope that they kind of mirror what they're saying as well. But we also have owners that have kind of come in and taken these clubs, and they've done them because of the money that our clubs were earning. And for you, it was the Emirates debt, and for us, it was the Glazers debt. But there's loads of comparisons that you can link our clubs together that lots of other fans can't really comprehend as much as us. And I just find that really interesting that we were such fierce rivals over the years, but as much as our fans specifically don't get on a lot compared to other, I mean, lots of fans have rivals. Like obviously you have your Spurs one, we have our Liverpool one, and maybe more City these days, but Liverpool as well will always be the unrooted one. But we Arsenal and United fans don't get on as well, but I just find it really funny that we've got so many comparisons between our clubs.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess this is kind of it feels right to link this. You're the host here, so I'm probably linking this in a bad way.
No, go.
Anything you don't like about your club, like in terms of owners, like the Cronkies, European Super League, such a bad shout. Like, we all know that. It was just not a good look for any of these guys. It was the super rich thinking they could do what they wanted with stuff. And yeah, like, it's just to me, it's just laughable that Arsenal should be in any discussion of a Super League at the moment. Like, we're barely one of the best 6 clubs in England, let alone in the world, like in Europe. So
I mean, yeah, I'm sure you don't mind me saying it was Spurs and Arsenal. Everybody was doing the questionable face of why are these two involved in those talks? Not that we wanted them to go through anyway, but yeah.
No one should. But look, I hope lessons are learned over that, and I think for what it's worth, like, I've been as critical as any one of the Cronkies over the years, but in actual fact, I kind of think they're starting to get it together, and they're not idiots. Like, these guys have made a lot of money from whatever they do, and so they will make the best decisions for their teams, and ultimately teams can't take they can't take years of unsustained success, because it will devalue the club. So you have to think, even financially, it's worth it for them to try and get it right, and that's all you can hope for. Absolutely. And I think they're moving in a better direction. They have a long way to go, but they're moving in a better direction for us anyway. I can't speak for the Glazers. It seems like that.
We're not. We'll always be the epitome of doing it wrong, and their whole MO. Not to talk about United too much on an Arsenal episode, their whole MO is literally make sure you get Champions League. If the manager's not going to choose Champions League, fire them, get the Champions League payments. Don't care where you bail out in the Champions League, rinse and repeat. That's as simple as it is. And I probably will do an episode at some point. It's lots of fans don't, I think, know the real truth or don't know the full numbers behind it. If I did an episode, I think even every fan that hates us would still be shocked and maybe even feel a little bit sorry for our fans when you realize how they've screwed us and how much money they've taken out. Anyway, so we'll get on to the kind of double-ended last set of questions. So this is kind of like a chance to put the Arsenal name out there, tell us what it's like to be a Gunner, but also I like to do positive and negatives because I like to get people's perspectives. And again, it's generational and all sorts of stuff. So it's your personal opinion. But we'll start with, is there anything that you don't like about your club? That could be owners, fans, etc.
Yeah. So again, I've kind of touched on Cronkies. I've kind of touched on, I'm not going to say I don't like Arteta, but I'm just not sure about Arteta. I feel like, we, over the last few years, have had a lot of boardroom uncertainty and lost a bit of identity. And I really hope that we get that back. But I've kind of said my piece on that. I think that's pretty common amongst Arsenal fans. And I don't want to go too heavy on that. We talked a lot about Kroenke and Arteta and all that sort of thing. And they're doing the right things and they're at least trying. So I think they've bought themselves at least till the end of the season. And if we record another episode of this in June next year after the season's finished, maybe I have a different view on it. But for now, let's park all those discussions. Mm-hmm. One thing that you've alluded to a lot over this, and I completely agree, is I just really strongly dislike Arsenal fan TV. I listen to a lot of Arsenal content that is made for Arsenal fans, and none of it is produced by them. Yeah. They, for me, are a very toxic influence. I don't think they speak for Arsenal fans at all. I don't think they really. I think they've done well coming through social media. I think a lot of fans of other clubs enjoy them. I think they've contributed a lot to us becoming what people describe as like a banter club, because they come out with these stupid takes that are just. But look, it gets eyeballs on it, and a lot of other clubs are doing it now, and it's just one of them. And some of the hate for them is massively over the top, because I think, misguidedly or not, they probably are Arsenal fans. I don't want to hear from them, however, and I don't think the majority of Arsenal fans do. Yeah. I think they probably have a bit of a following amongst younger people, which is a shame. But look, they're entitled to their opinions. They do what they do. They are loyal Arsenal fans. I'm sure a lot of them go to, a vast majority of the games as well. So I can't be like they don't support Arsenal. I don't think they speak for our club.
Yeah. I think it's like the reason that I didn't want to try and put it in your mouth too much, because I kind of wanted to get your first-hand opinion on it. But I knew that it must be a thing where I know lots of other Arsenal fans where they're exactly the same. They're like, they don't speak for us. It's not what they're doing. It was maybe started off with from a good place, and then it kind of grew like things do with the amount of success they got, and then it becomes more baity, it becomes more clicks, they do some of the takes because it's over the top. And as you said, like lots of, I've never been particularly one for it. At the start I thought the odd one was funny, but I'm not one of those fans that instantly rushes. But you see a lot of the football group chats and stuff going, can't wait to see that result on Arsenal Fan TV, because they want to see the drama and stuff. And that's unfortunately lots of social media issues. Won't step into that realm today. But yeah, it seems to be that it's bringing lots more negativity. Arsenal fans always had, which maybe I can touch on and put some things out when you can come back to me and say, because we did this on the Chelsea episode as well. Like Arsenal fans have some stigmas, and maybe you can debunk them or confirm some of them. You seem to be super fickle fans. One, you seem to be really whiny fans, is what lots of people say. You're constantly just making the biggest noise. And now I think with the Arsenal Fan TV, it's escalated those things to an even higher proportion.
Yeah. Wow, that's I don't know. Yeah, that's a lot of heat. Look, I don't think that the majority of the fan base thinks that way, but the fans that speak the loudest are getting heard the loudest. Yeah. I think a lot of people are moderate in their views. I also think we have had quite a heavy dose of bad luck in not just bad luck, but it was okay. We've not necessarily had bad luck, but we've had bad judgment at boardroom level, and that seeps down into everything else.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have people being put in the wrong places that don't know what they're doing necessarily, that are constantly making bad decisions, and it's opened us up for criticism. We had a manager that controlled literally everything in the club, and it was amazing until it wasn't. And the Arsenal decline started a long time before the 3 or 4 years that it was like it's time for Wenger to go. There's been some bad decisions down the road. Some of the whinging is justified. Some of it is not. I don't think the fan base is fickle in general. And I think we are, I just think I think a lot of football teams fans are reactionary now, and
100%.
It's not. I think it's a symptom of what's happening across the game rather than just at Arsenal.
That's not me saying my opinions on Arsenal fans. That's just what you sometimes hear on a global thing that you hear about fans, and it's exactly as you said. You could say that for anything. I would say actually over the last 3-4 months, and it has been growing even bigger for a long time, United fans are the more whiny fans at the moment. We are the more fickle fans. I literally hate seeing Ole out when the team sheet's put up or before the match even starts. Do you know what I mean? That it's social media and it's traction to the loudest voice sometimes hears these things, and some of the channels are doing the same thing for us.
Yeah, and I think to touch on United, I think it's mental recently that people are getting on to Gary Neville on Twitter and having a go at him because he won't call for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to be sacked.
Well, speaking of that, sorry,
why does that matter?
Yeah, to touch on that as well. Like one thing I really wanted to, again, we've talked a lot of United, and I apologise for this supposed to be an Arsenal episode, but I think it's important to bring this up. On that same wavelength, obviously United have had a lot of Glazers out protests about this, and I know Arsenal have looked at certain stuff with the Cronkies and their kind of board and stuff as well. But I've seen that there's apparently going to be another Glazer protest this weekend. I am 100% behind Glazer protest. I think it should happen, and I want them out my club. I'm agreeing with most of the fans. Problem is, next weekend, it's turned into a Ole out protest at the same time. I don't think that's absolutely not what people should be doing. I think it's disgraceful that that's going to be a thing. You can have your opinions on whether you think he should be in or out. I think on the last kind of episodes, I was completely Ole in until about 3 weeks ago. it then slipped, and now I'm on I think he's taken us as far as he can, but I think he's done an amazing job to get us up to another level, and we just need that extra person to come in and take us even further. So, but if he left now, it would be from positive stuff, not from negative stuff. Is that how we should remember his reign? But yeah, I disagree. Like, with people doing that, I think it's disgraceful that they're even considering putting that. The board and how your club's run is one thing, putting it against players or managers is a whole separate thing.
Yeah, no, 100%. I completely agree. And look, we've been through similar stuff, and it is what it is. Like, you know, like Granit Xhaka has become a bit of an emblem for us, and it Xhaka is Xhaka, and I don't believe he's. You know, the problem is he's not helped himself out over the years. You know, when he flipped the bird at the Arsenal fans, when he got subbed off as captain, like he just. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, what it shouldn't be. Ownership is a different matter to on pitch matters.
Absolutely,
so, yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. I mean, is there anything else you want to touch on in terms of that you don't like, or should we get on to kind of the roundup of talking about anything you want to say to fellow fans, or even anyone that maybe is considered supporting Arsenal as a club or anything like that?
Well, if you're considering supporting Arsenal as a club, I'd advise you not to.
It's up and down. You got to take it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think we've gone over a lot of it. I don't want to go into too many negatives. I think we've done this 2 months ago. We were a lot more bleak. I'm quite happy that it's not. I just want to get behind what we are about now, and if what we're about is the Hale boys and sort of Project Youth V2, then
absolutely, that's a great thing to get behind. Yeah, I think that's a really nice message. It's, you know, you're gonna have good and bads, but it's believe in the process, support them while it's happening, and then you've got this shining, you know, youth players coming through of that, and that's the exciting thing. Like, focus on the positives. I think that's a really nice thing to say to fans. Yeah.
I'm avoiding trust the positive, trust the process, because that's an Artetaism. But definitely, if you can't believe in the manager and you can't believe in the owners, then believe in these players, because they actually seem to give a shit about our club, and we've not had that for a long time.
Exactly. So, and as a fan, like, I'm not telling people how to support, but as a fan, surely you want to, no matter what, get behind your team and hope for the best outcomes. That's all you can do. Be positive. Yes, it's hard at times, but that's the point of supporting. You're through thick and thin, and you're taking it as they come. That's kind of it for my questions. Is there anything else we haven't touched on, or you want to say in general, or is that kind of it for what you're thinking?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's it for me. Cheers for having me on.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on to represent Arsenal, and it's been great to catch up. And there's some really interesting points that you've brought up and stuff, and especially about the kind of the Hale boys and the youth setup and stuff that lots of people might not know about from an Arsenal perspective as well. So it's a really interesting topic.
Yeah, and I'd say if if you are looking to get into Arsenal, more for you. But if you want to get into it and you like, it would be wrong of me not to call out Arse blog, Gunner blog, the guys at The Athletic. They're doing really amazing work. Those are really good places to start off to get a lot of your opinions and information. It's very balanced. It's very considered. It's very analytical. It's brilliant work. So, look, if you're looking to get into Arsenal, more for you. But if you want to then try and navigate what we do, then I suggest getting into those guys, because they're really good places to start. A good podcast, other than obviously the flagship Community FC.
I appreciate that, but it's always good to have. I have certain fan channels that I like for United, and certain fan channels which I don't, and I absolutely stay away from. So it's good, and it's good to get more content around your club. But thanks so much again, mate. That's been a really good episode. Don't forget, if you have been enjoying this content, forget to hit us with a thumbs up and like the video. Let us know that you've been enjoying the content. You can hit subscribe to get more content. We're trying to get kind of 2 videos out a week at the moment of the roundup review of my club. There is plenty more videos in the works, so don't forget that, and also hit that notification bell. If you're like me, I tend to keep notifications on all the videos because they go up at random times. You don't want to miss them, and then you might miss an episode. So that'd be really good. But thanks very much, guys. This has been another episode of My Club talking about Arsenal, and everybody enjoy their week off because international break as we're recording this now. But yeah, good luck to Arsenal in a sense of a rival fan saying that in a hands-off way. But yeah, good luck to Arsenal for the rest of the season. Yeah, and thanks very much, guys. We will see you for another episode soon.